Welcome everyone today. It's lovely to see you and have you on this LinkedIn Live again. So we're talking today about meaningful relationships and what it means at work and also in our private life. But before we get into the details, or maybe some tips and tricks or some best practices or stories that we can talk about, I would like to ask Victoria to talk a little bit about the core model, just to sum it up, because a lot of people haven't heard from us for a while, and maybe they need some information about the core model again.
Thank you, Martina, and welcome everybody, and thank you for watching. So the core model, it's a product or a service that me and Martina we worked on for a very long time, and we figure out that we need something to work at the core of the problems that we have at work. So the core model is made up of four components. And the first one is communication. So it's communication is the basis for everything we believe. The O is the outcomes, which is all about setting outcomes and intentions and having a purpose in life and at work. The R, which we're talking about today, is all about relationships. And then the E is about ecology. And ecology means, of course, the ecology that we are all used to hear about. But ecology is more about the ecology of the system, of the whole system we belong to, where different dynamics are present. So we are looking at the whole system instead only of at individual parts. So basically, the core model is a tool that will help your teams thrive in this world today where we're facing a lot of disengagement, the great resignation, quiet quitting, all of these hot terms that I believe they have always been present. But now we have terms for everything and they become labeled in a way. So, Martina, back to you. Maybe you want to say something about relationships now?
Well, before I talk about relationships, for those who haven't watched the LinkedIn Lives from our C and O of the core model, you can do that as well. You can still find them on YouTube when we are talking about communication and the outcomes. And now let's get into relationships. Um, we all have relationships, in our private life, in our work life. And sometimes it's very difficult to build those relationships, and especially meaningful and long lasting relationships. And from my experience, like when it comes to working in an office, you have a certain corporate culture. And sometimes the corporate cultures are like not meant to be as open, maybe, or you don't have those close relationships that you would have or maybe had in the past in another company, because the corporate culture is different. And the other thing is that you as a person, you might not be as an extrovert, and you have a hard time building relationships. So, or it takes time to build relationships. And then those two like collide a little bit. And, but we still need those relationships. It's important to belong somewhere, and especially in like at work, because you spend quite some time at work with your colleagues, with your boss, with your managers, and you need those relationships to feel that you belong, right?
Mhm. Yes, and when you belong, you feel also safe, and you feel that you're taken care of, and you feel you feel then when you feel safe and when you feel that you belong into a team at work, then productivity increases, and this is research has proven this over and over again.
Yeah.
And I would like to quote, when now, of course, this is the one part of the equation. But then another part is, as you mentioned, corporate culture, and there are a lot of toxic corporate cultures and toxic relationships, and they drain us. They drain the team, the individual, and the whole company. And we quote Esther Perel on our website, who says, and I will just read it: "No amount of money or purpose or even free food can compensate for a poisonous relationship at work." And unlike performance, relationships are much harder to measure, harder to sustain, and harder to repair. And as Martina said, of course, we cannot expect that when we enter a new culture or a new job, that our relationships will immediately be great and amazing. It's like when you meet someone on a first date, you are not there with a diamond ring and asking them to marry you, or you don't expect that. But relationships are built with time, and trust is built with time. So both parties need to contribute constantly, so that this belonging and trust and safety is established.
Maybe sometimes it happens that you start working in a company, it immediately clicks that you become friends with other people, and with colleagues, and then you kind of surf on the same wave. um, and you kind of belong to that little group, perhaps, so that helps. But to build that trust, and those meaningful relationships, as you said, it takes time. And when you think of different cultures, also countries, and maybe you can tell me also about the country you were born in, but especially in Austria, it takes some time to build relationships. Yeah.
Mhm.
And when it comes to cultures, I don't know if you've heard that comparison, but we say, okay, some cultures are coconuts and some are peaches. Have you heard that before?
No, tell me
No?
more
Okay.
about it. I would like to hear, so that I see
So,
where I belong.
so the coconut itself says, okay, you're hard on the outside and it takes time to actually get in. And then when you're in, you're safe, you're inside, you have built that relationship. And some cultures or countries are more like peaches, where we say it's soft on the outside and it seems that you're quickly getting in. But when you come to the core,
Mhm.
then you hit that hard core.
Mhm.
And it takes also some time to really get to know the person. And again, we're at that point of it just takes time to trust someone. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we all have in common, no matter if it's like harder at the beginning or harder at a later point,
Mhm.
but it's the same thing. And I think when you look at companies and corporate cultures, it may also take some time, and you have to give yourself time to build those relationships, to get to know the people in the company and know exactly what you need to do in order to belong, to feel safe. And one thing that you said before is that if you do not have that feeling of belonging, you might just leave the company
Mhm.
again within, I don't know, weeks, months, and without even telling other people what the problem was. And that's
Yeah.
also a big issue right now.
Yeah. From what you explained, I think I'm a peach.
All right.
I'm a Macedonian that I found myself in Austria among coconuts.
I like that comparison. I really do. Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's cool. It's cool. And back to back to what you said. Of course, there are a lot of factors that contribute to building relationships, and I think that especially at work, in business, private life. Everywhere relationships are what makes our life, because we're social creatures, we're social animals, and we cannot survive without each other, without. And this comes from prehistoric times. Feeling that you belong and feeling safe is, I would say, is the job of leadership. You know, that creating this safe environment. Because if I don't feel safe at work, and if I don't feel that I belong, and if I don't feel that my colleagues are supporting me, that my relationships are not established, then I will spend more energy in protecting myself, protecting my back from someone stabbing me, and or someone stealing my idea, or I will be careful with whom I'm communicating, with whom I'm open, how I'm communicating. So it's a complex issue, instead of focusing on doing my job and being productive and giving the best that I can. So relationships are really a vital part of our life, and maybe we can also think of examples, maybe from our own life, or maybe from the life of others, and how we have helped. Have you had a toxic relationship at work, maybe?
Let me think. Really toxic. I have to be honest. I'm glad I didn't. Yeah. When I think about it, it was really never really that bad that made me leave a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, you tend to have colleagues that you might not get along as well as with others. I guess that's normal. Um, but I agree that it's also the job of the leader or the manager to create that environment that you feel safe if something is happening, that you can actually go to that person and say, okay, something is not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about it, or even talk to the person. But luckily, um, no, I've never had that. Um, so yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. But what about you?
I've had a lot. But now at this moment, what I'm thinking at is, this is a long time ago, and I had a manager that that we really, the whole team was suffering from this relationship. It was a woman, and she was very autocratic. She was not really available for us, for sharing our troubles, for sharing our challenges. It was always only you do this, and we were all suffering. The whole team was suffering. This is really like 20 years ago, and I didn't have the tools of how to build a relationship, or how to even recognize that this is a toxic relationship. But I know that every day I was coming back from work, and I would feel drained, and I would feel really horrible. At work, I was not productive. I hate that every morning I was, like when your legs move backwards, and I didn't even want to go to work. So I talked to the director,
Mhm.
and I complained about it. And then nothing changed. And then the second time I went to him, and I complained again in the name of the whole team. I said, the whole team is suffering. And he said, well, no one from the team is telling any of this. You're the only one that is complaining. So I was the problem child, I was the rebel.
Mhm.
So I went back to the team, and I said, okay, listen, guys, I'm the only one complaining, and it turns out that I have a personal problem. So how about we all go and talk to the big boss about our boss that we are not happy. And then everybody, that's a very very interesting thing. What happened is everybody turned around. So there was one that just continued staring at the screen. Another one said, well, I don't really have a problem with this. Another one said, well, I don't want to talk about it. Found myself in, in a toxic relationship basically with everybody. I mean, I figured out that I was like the only one that had a problem. So of course I went, after maybe a week, I needed some time, but I went and I quit the job. Because sometimes, the this is the only way. And this was really interesting. If you look at, I was reflecting at a training with the leadership team last week, and I told them this story, and at the same time I reflected, and I said, well, sometimes when you have a problematic employee, like I was a problematic one, obviously. On the other, if you are on the other side, sometimes you don't even have to do anything. The problem just disappears.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call you the problem here. Yeah. And I think a lot of other people would agree with me, saying that this is, you should be listening to what comes up, even if it's just one person in a team. And it made me think now, because last week I had a training with, in total, 15 people. And we were actually talking about other topics, but what the topic that actually always surfaced in the middle was that they're not listened to, and that they had issues with some things, and that they were not, I mean, they kind of, they felt they do belong, but there was something missing, and they kept complaining to their managers and leaders, but nothing came in response. So nothing has happened, and they were all like, okay, if it doesn't change, we're leaving. And I'm like, those are 15 people, you know and that's quite a lot. The question is, and I asked them, if it comes to like talking to your managers again, would you go as a whole group? And that was interesting again, because they said, yeah, but in a group, it's hard to get all the people together and go and complain as a group. And I said, what exactly is the problem? Yeah, they don't have time, or they have a different job to do. And all of a sudden, it kind of disappeared. It's like, no, 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 no. They wanted to air their anger,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to be heard,
Yeah.
but not go that far of complaining as a group.
Mm-hmm. What would you say? I mean, for me and from my experience until now, it's fear. It's fear stopping the people from saying what they want and expressing their needs, their wants, and fear of losing the job.
That's true. Yeah. And especially now in those times, you don't want to lose your job. Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. And but even especially in those times, you need those relationships, those friendships that you build with people, and also with your managers or the leaders, yeah, that you report to. And if you don't have that, and they're not listening, then it's not very helpful, and it won't get you through hard times.
Yeah. And also the company suffers, productivity suffers, the energy suffers. There is a lot behind it afterwards that is affected. So we maybe I can talk about also the case that we had last time with so we had a team of approximately 11, 12 people. And then there was one person that was extremely toxic. This was the high performer in the team. And this person was extremely toxic to the whole team. So there was bullying, there was a lot of pressure on everybody. There was fear also. And this was not even the boss, this was a colleague, but a high performing colleague. So what happens when we have a high performer in a team, we are allowing, or we are allowing the toxicity because of the performance of this one person. And this one person affects the whole team and their performance. So we worked we basically figured out the problem, and then we worked with establishing boundaries, which are very important when you are working in a team, because yes, in a team, individuality is very important, but also connection and belonging are very important for the whole performance of the team. So so different problems may arrive when you are in a team. As you said in the beginning, someone is an introvert, maybe it can be a communication problem, which you're not communicating well with each other, you're not expressing your needs, as Martina said before. So all of these little things need to be seen, and the dynamic between the team members needs to be seen. So you mentioned at the beginning, so who is on this side and who are you loyal to? And where there are entanglements, there's so many things when we talk about relationships to be seen from above, let's say.
Yeah. And especially in teams, the relationships are like they're essential to work together on different projects. And if you don't get along with certain people, the performance is just not as good as it could be. And what I noticed also with another group that we worked with was that the change of like when you're face to face with someone on site and you work as a team, it's completely different than when you work online. Because if you have people that are like constantly in the spotlight or want to be in the spotlight, or then it's very hard for the other ones to be seen. And this is also that comes with communication problems, and that you don't want to understand what other people want and other team members, and the project is not done. So that's also another group that we worked with and said, okay, let's try to improve communication in general, and therefore also the relationships and how they work together.
Yeah. So communication, as I say, is the currency of relationships. And also attention is the currency of relationships. So there are a lot of currencies that contribute to great relationships. And as you say, it's the responsibility of the leader. I mean, of course, the leader cannot be responsible for the relationships between the team, but the leader is the one that needs to create a safe environment where relationships can be established and people feel safe. And the leader, if you ask me, the leader needs to be a coach, needs to have an open ear, needs to ask questions, proper questions, needs to be to hold the space for the people that are in the team so that they can express themselves. Because if we are not feeling safe, and if we are constantly being protective of ourselves and having a shield so that we can protect ourselves from the arrows that are coming our way, then Innovation is not possible. Creativity is not possible. Engagement is not possible. High performance is not possible. None of this is possible.
True. And as you remember, we've been working with some managers who wanted to have those skills, to become, or some coaching skills, not become a coach per se, but really wanted to add skills to what they already know to be able to lead their teams and to say, how can I be a better listener and be in the moment and help where it's actually needed instead of focusing solely on the financial outcome. Let's put it that way.
So the core model is basically all of this.
An all-in-one package.
Yeah. And it looks at the core of the problem or at the core of the challenge, because we cannot just take out relationships and look at relationships solely. We need to look at the whole. So we need to look at how we communicate. We need to learn communication, because none of us was taught at school how to communicate and what are the basics of communication. And then outcomes, are we all on the same page? Because one can have one outcome if the outcome or the purpose, let's say, it's too broad and people do not know the outcome. I always like to give this example. If we say we're going to United States, maybe I go to New York and you go to San Diego, and we are in a completely two different sides of the world, even, or the United States. And then relationships are what drives us, because if I feel safe, if I feel that I can trust you, that I can trust my manager, then I will give myself, I will give my sweat, in a way, to what I'm doing. And I will be creative, and I will be innovative, and I will enjoy the time that we spend at work. And there is this wild estimate that we spend 60% of our awake time at work, which is a lot. And then also, as a leader, you need to look at the whole dynamic into the system, and you need to create the ecology of the whole dynamic into the system. And this is why we mentioned that you need to, as a leader, you will learn when you do the core model training, and when you take it for your company, you and your employees will learn, your leadership team, or even lower, let's say on the hierarchy, employees will learn about all of this, and they will feel much safer, so that you get better results.
They have to be all on board. So if one person wants to change, nothing is going to happen. If a whole team wants to change, that might trigger something. But it's really all on that ladder, and the hierarchy they need to feel that they want to change something, to start the change process and say, okay, we want to create that environment of safety and trust, and that we can build on that. Otherwise, it's not working. If one person or one stakeholder is not on board, it's not going to work.
So about relationships, because this is the R, and it's all interconnected. So what's maybe a tip or a trick we can give our viewers for the end of our video? Maybe how can they improve their relationships?
I think what I would be like, one advice I would give is to take a look at how you as a person, what kind of relationships you have, to just be aware of your relationships to begin with, and know, okay, how easy it is for me to build relationships, what kind of relationships, deep, meaningful relationships, or just something on the surface. And then one of the biggest things, I guess, that we all need to learn um, is to start listening and to be present when you talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because otherwise, you don't really know what the other person is talking about once, or what kind of meaning is behind the words. And if you know what the other person needs, it's easier to build the relationships. You actually listen to the person, and that might help a lot to establish
Mm-hmm.
meaningful and long lasting relationships, instead of just saying, "How are you? Good, fine, thanks, goodbye." So that's very much on the surface, but asking the question, and it's funny that you say that, because when I ask the question, "How are you?" I actually really want to know how you are, how you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't see it and say, "Yeah, fine, thanks." And when I keep asking, "Okay, are you sure? What does that mean?" um, then they open up. But that's where I would start. Yeah, to be aware of your relationships and then start listening and get
Yeah.
an idea of what your surrounding looks like.
Yeah. Show genuine interest in the person that is on the left and on the right of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't feel it. Yeah, as you say,
Mhm.
just like we get, and then you
Yes.
just go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. And what I would like to add is learning to say no, because
Boundaries. Yes.
boundaries boundaries are extremely important, and especially saying no. We worked with a team recently, and we had a manager that was just taking responsibilities on themselves, and then putting the responsibility, more and more responsibility, on the team. And the team was feeling that they have too much on their plate that is for other departments than doing their job that is for their department. And this was the responsibility of the leader of the team. So during our work, we discovered that this leader cannot say no to the other departments, and then just the work piles up, and the team is dissatisfied, and they're exhausted, and they are easily irritated, and a lot of unpleasant feelings came up. So learning to say no and to prioritize, basically, when you say no, it doesn't mean that it's no forever, but it's no at the moment. And then take the responsibility to come back and to say, okay, until this time, we were not going to able to do this, but then we're finishing our project, let's say, as of Monday we can take on this. So yes, saying no, it's very important for relationships.
Yes. To have those clear boundaries with your colleagues, with your boss, with your manager, even though I know it's very difficult for a lot of people out there
Yeah.
to say no and say, "Okay, I've got enough work to do. Don't you see my pile up here? I Please don't add anything." But it's
Mm,
also something connected to the environment, the ecology, and say, "Okay, I actually can say no. I'm allowed to say no."
yes.
That's part of it. Yeah, it starts with you to say, "Okay,
Mm,
that's how far I can go, so that I know my boundaries." But it's also the system itself that
yeah.
allows it or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. And it's also always very interesting when one starts changing, the whole system starts changing. But as you say, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's always easier to pop a pill, to do a quick fix, than to go the longer way, which is slower. But then the effect is much wider, and it's lasting.
Yes, true. But in both ways, or both examples that you just mentioned, it's the coaching or a training could really help, to find out what's the situation right now, where do I want to be in the future. And that's also, the reason why we built or came up with the core model, because that's what we want to create and give the companies and the people out there to say, okay, we're working on the whole system, like all 4 parts, and create a person that you're really comfortable with, with your
Yeah.
own. Mm.
Yeah. And I love one of my teachers, Yokel, and she says, building yourself is building the world. So yes, something that I want to mention in this context, because when you're building yourself as a leader, when you're building your people as people, then you are building the world, making it a
Sure.
better place. And this is what we're all about. The core model is all about.
Yeah. And what we should be working on. So,
Yes.
yeah. Mhm. So, for everyone who's watching today, so if you noticed something, some patterns, maybe at work or with yourself, or you realized, yeah, there is something, like some boundaries that I don't have, or it's hard to say no, or the company itself or the team that you work in have some difficulties with the communication or building relationships, reach out to us, and we'll set up a first meeting to establish what and how we can help you with, and then let's go from there, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something, Victoria?
Nothing in particular.
All
Just
right.
that we can, we can. It's usually we say, okay, it's too difficult. No, we can create better companies. We can create companies that care for their employees. We can create workplaces where people are happy to go. It shouldn't be the exception, but it should be the standard, and then, yeah, I hope this is where the future, where we're going. And I'm looking forward to your calls and helping you.
I'm also looking forward to the calls or emails that you might have. But one of the things that Victoria mentioned before, or you mentioned before, is like waking up in the morning and having the drive to actually go to work and be happy to go to work, and looking forward to it, and not trying to make steps back. I think that's the most important part, and that you have that feeling of belonging. So let me just quickly ask if there are any questions, but I haven't seen any yet. So I guess if you really, all the people who are watching out there, if you have any questions, please reach out to us via LinkedIn or email, or just call us, and we'll set up a first meeting. So thank you very much for watching today. And we'll see you all soon, when we will be focusing on the last part of the core, the E, the ecology, next time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.